Hello and welcome to the Money Queen podcast. I am Alex Nicolaitis, the Money Queen. I am here to break the stigma that we don't talk about money here. I will deliver the loving bitch slaps that you need in your business to elevate you as a leader and support you through to that next level of welcoming in the wealthiest version of yourself. Backed by 14 years in the accounting and bookkeeping industry, I utilize the support of the masculine systems, structure, and ATO compliance combined with the feminine energetics of mentoring and allowing ourselves to be open to receiving and holding space for queens like yourself who are committed to forming a healthy relationship with money. So hit that subscribe button, leave me a rating, and I cannot wait to have you by my side as we raise the feminine collective and create true generational wealth and change. Hello, amazing human, and welcome to the Money Queen podcast. My name is Alex, and today I have another beautiful guest with me. It is one of my clients, and I'm not just saying this, one of my favorite freaking humans, Katie Godden. Oh, I mean, when did you come into my world? I'd say we're going on 2 years now. And 2 years, you reckon?
I think it is 2 years. Yeah, it'd be just over the 18-month mark to 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And the expansion, the evolution, the growth that you have had, I'm just like, I'm sitting here as a proud mama. And I'm like on the sidelines being like, yes, queen, yes. Because you have just shifted so much in your business, in your life, in your money mindset as well. And just like, amen to leaning into difficult conversations, leaning into like letting go of previous beliefs. Amen to like allowing yourself to be supported in this evolution. Yep, hands in the air. Thank you very much. Like we just don't care. But we care so much, right?
So much so.
Yes. And why I wanted to get you on the podcast today, besides the fact that you are an amazing human, is because your specialty is words. It is language. And that is something that we are using every single day. We're using right now. And especially in the money context, it's like words have such powerful meaning behind them and such an influential tool that we use every single day. And I guarantee that 95% of us, unless you have been to an NLP training or a master's, like, you know, that is your service at the moment, you're not aware of how much impact the language that you use actually can make in your everyday life or in your business, and how much impact it makes on the people around you as well in your environment. So I'd love for you to share with the audience, why is language so important to you and how did you get into this work?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And I particularly love that for your listeners, you're part of my teamie. I think that's one of the key components is surrounding yourself with the right people who do have also a shared language and love of, you know, speaking into existence what it is that we actually want rather than what we don't. And so for me, what got me into language and the love of language and communication has been a bit of a journey. It started out with me really trying to understand how other people ticked. So I was in a space where I had lots of people coming to me asking for advice in the space of health because I'd dropped numbers significantly that was told I couldn't. I had lost an incredible amount of weight. I was energized. I was running a business. I was also working full time. I had 2 children. And so people started coming to me asking, well, what are you doing? And so I gave them everything. And in giving them everything, I didn't realize that the thing that I didn't gift them was the language and the way of thinking. I gave them everything else, but I didn't give them the language and the thinking behind that, like the shift in who I be. And so,
Yes.
You know, I think for me, that was the very starting point of this. I got really curious and had a conversation with my brother, and he said, you need to, Kit, just have a look at this thing. It's called NLP. And I was like, NL what? He said, just go and do it. Just go and do it. And I'm really pleased he did, because when I started to research, when I started to look into it, I, of course, went down all those little rabbit warrens and started to search and hunt and discover new things. And that was when the penny dropped that I had given them everything in order to go out fishing, but I hadn't given them the mindset or the language and the way of communicating so that they could actually function and get the same results that I did. And So that's what got me into NLP. That's what got me into becoming a trainer, because I then just fell in love with the power that language had. I had no idea as a primary school teacher. So I started out as a primary school teacher.
Oh, I love
and
that.
little people. And what I didn't realize was the great impact that my words had. And it wasn't until I actually went in and started studying the effects of language and communication and how our minds work, because it's not what we think that matters. It's actually how do we think. And so once I understood the depth of that, I then became really hungry and thought, wow, I had spent 30 odd years expressing myself in a particular way and had no idea that I actually had control over it. And once I realized that I'm in full control of my thoughts and the way that I speak and the way that I present and the way that I interact with the world, that it doesn't just happen by chance, I get to make it happen, that was the game changer. And so fully fledged lent into my business, lent into all the newness of going from being a primary school teacher, so identity shift, right? From a primary school teacher into someone that was a health and wellness coach for a while, and now to become a trainer for health and wellness practitioners. It was just the natural evolution. And I think what I've realized is that language and communication is far greater than anyone ever realizes. And it's such a beautiful thing to explore, because you get to empower yourself at every moment of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And a memory of just popped up into my head. I just joined this spa as part of my gym. And so I've been going with a friend regularly. And every time, because I'm so mindful of my language, every time I speak to her and I say like, oh, I have to do this, I immediately change my language. I'm like, oh no, I get to do this. Sorry. And for me, it's unconscious now, because I know that I'm aware of that and I don't have to do anything. I get to do everything. And so whenever it just pops out from autopilot going, oh, I have to do this, I'm like, oh, get to do that. I get to do this, or I get to have this conversation. She's like, oh, there you go again. I'm like, what did I do? Right. But it's such a pivotal part of like, yes, like we get to control like this huge part of our lives. Like if you thought about your daily life and how much language you actually use, it is a massive part of it. And language isn't even just in the spoken word. It's about the body as well, of how you respond, how your body is responding. Because before you even say a word, your animal body is speaking to the other person's animal body. And it's like, do I feel safe here? Do I feel secure here? Do I feel some sort of resistance? Do I feel at threat right now? Do I need to close myself off? Do I need to cross my arms? Like, what's that bodily response? So, language isn't just that spoken word. It's all encompassing in literally the second that you come into someone's presence, you are speaking, but are you actually open to receiving the message that's being delivered? Or like, what message are you delivering, for instance, as well?
And you're exactly right, because it's both ways.
Yeah.
This is the thing, like we're all 100% in charge of our communication, 100%. And I love how you bring that up, because yes, it's more than just the words that we have. Like the number that they give it is 7%.
Yep.
The other words that we use. However, of that word that we use, it's also about the energy and frequency that you deliver it, how it resonates with you. Because yes, we're talking to another human, and we're also talking to ourselves at the same time that we speak things out. And so just for example, in my journey, I experienced type 1, and I have for 37 years this year. And it wasn't until maybe 12 months ago that I actually realized the profoundness of the frequency of the words that I used, because someone would say to me, oh, Katie, you're a diabetic. And inside my body, it was like no, I'm not. And I could feel it. I could feel myself like bristle up. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And I knew that it was just something that the meaning that I had given that word. And that's all it was. And a lot of the time when we're speaking, we have an unconscious meaning that we've given to words. So sometimes when someone speaks to us and that word may feel a little icky or a little off, then it could be because of the meaning that we have made to that word. And so for me now, it's always, and I always explain, and I will pick myself up just like you, that I say I am someone who is experiencing type 1. I am
Yes.
not a diabetic. I am experiencing type 1 diabetes. And when I say that, I'm good and it feels good in my body. And therefore, when I'm communicating with people, my physical body, which is part of the communication, is strong and sturdy. My tonality is open and inviting. And the words that I use are more loving and accepting and present in that space. So there's a whole new level of things that go on for us outside of just the simple fact of words. And I think it's important that we know it's not only what goes out, but it's what we say to ourselves as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I had, on the weekend, I was with my partner and he said to me a couple of times, and I picked him up, I think on the third time he said it, he's like, oh, you're being so spoiled by me. And I was like, when I heard the word spoiled, like it didn't sit well in my body. And I was like, oh, I'll just leave that. I won't pick him up on it. And then the second time I was like, no, that's definitely, there's something in that for me. And then the third time he said it, I was like, no, like I get, like I really am struggling with receiving that word, the spoiled. And I'm like, I don't know what it is just yet, but I'm like, can we shift that language? And I'm like, because you're not spoiling me. You were just, giving me love in an abundance, which is my God-given right. Like, I know that I'm an amazing human. You are an amazing man, and we get to share our lives together. And I'm like, this isn't spoiling. This is just what life gets to be like when we're in partnership together. So it was like, and he's like, oh, yeah, okay. And like, I haven't had the chance to unpack it just yet, but I'm sure there's some childhood story going on there being like, oh, because I was a third child, and it's like the third child is always spoiled in inverted commas. So it's like there's a negative connotation that I am somehow being wrong by being gifted like love and attention and energy by perhaps my father, for instance, that now I'm seeing this spoiledness come from another masculine, and it's like, oh, that's wrong. Like, I shouldn't be spoiled. And it's like, no, fuck that. Like, I challenge that belief. I'm not being spoiled. I'm just being treated as I deserve to be because I'm a queen and I have standards, and you are just literally meeting me at those standards. Like, this gets to be our reality. So thank you for loving me.
I love that, and it's beautiful that you get to express it that way too, because it's the truth. We get to actually look at the words that we're using or that are coming towards us or that we're delivering, and we get to have that open conversation, and we get to have that insight that, oh, actually that doesn't sit, and I'm not sure why. I know it's something that I just need to unpack. However, let's shift it, and it's so easy to shift language. It's so easy to ask someone, how does that sit with you? It's profound. I love that story. That's great.
Yeah. And it's so interesting though, isn't it? It is really easy in practicality, but for me, it took me 3 times to hear that word for me to be like, okay, now I get to say something. And the last time we were together, like I did withhold in sharing like some of my truths with him, and that bit me on the ass. By the time I got home, I was like, here's a long list of all the things, right? And this time when I saw him, it was like, okay, I get to speak into the things that trigger me or that I don't feel right with in the moment. And that created such a different environment for our relationship moving forward. And, if we bring this theme into business, it's like, where are you not communicating with yourself or with your business partners or with your team? What's actually going on for you? Where are you not communicating with money, for instance, to be like, I'm not loving the way that you're coming into my world right now because you're not coming into my world at all. Like, and then resentment builds up and anger and frustration. It's like, I'm doing all the things, but nothing's actually shifting or moving right now. And it's like, hang on a minute, let's take a step back. Let's look at the language that I am, let's look at the relationship of the language that I am having with money right now. And if there isn't any at all, great, that's where we get to start. Like, if there's no communication between you and money, and if you've listened to my earlier episodes, I literally have money dates every week with money and actually talk to it. I've got a money shrine, and it's like I get to communicate with it because it's a large part of life. I live in an abundant space, and I'm like, I get to receive more money than I need in inverted commas, in my life, because that's what I'm choosing. And how do I do that? It's with having an open and honest relationship with money so that it comes into my world in abundance, in flow, with ease and grace. And I think that that's, one thing that you've leaned into since we've been working together as well is actually having those communication lines really open with money to allow yourself to change that relationship. Because I remember when we first started working together, it was like your body was speaking, like it was screaming at me. Like, I don't even know how to be here right now. Like, the color of your skin was red as tomatoes. And, now 18 months, 2 years on, we love our end of month meetings because it's like, cool, what's come up the last month in my relationship with money? What's happening in my business that I get to shift? Like, what do I get to celebrate last month? And, that's totally shifted. So I'd love for you to speak into, your experience of where you were at with your relationship with money, in how you communicated with it or lack thereof, and how you've evolved that now over the last couple of years.
Oh my gosh, it is one of those things that I quite often think about, and the 360 pivot that I did, where I've actually come to today from where I was, because when I first came to you, I still remember the day, like it makes me laugh because it was so profoundly difficult for me to have the conversation with you.
Yeah.
Like behind the scenes, my books were unorganized. I paid zero attention to it. Just like if you've got that junk room that you just keep throwing stuff in and you don't know what's in there, what's coming, what's going. You don't actually know what needs to be thrown away or what needs to be packaged and put away nicely. And so the first step for me was just owning where I was at. And here's the beautiful thing is that I know, because I've been there, around having difficult conversations around money. And they're only difficult because I labeled it that.
Yeah.
Right? So what I've realized over the years is that the relationship that I didn't have with money, it was just literally like a machine exchange. That was it. And what I've learned to develop and what I've learned to love is know that my money is just telling me a story.
Amen. Music to my ears.
Yeah. I've just got to lean in. I've just got to ask it what I want. I just have to see what it's telling me. Like it's this underlying communication. And I think a lot of the fear came from the fact that I never did that. I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't sure. I didn't know what questions to ask. Until stuff went wrong, it was like, oh my goodness. Rather than saying, actually, I don't know this. Could you teach me? Which I know has been beautiful in our partnership, because we've had that ability to, every month we have our little dates, we have our money moments. And the first one, I remember telling you, like, I sat there and I was so hot and I was so uncomfortable and I was teary and I was all of these things. But the beautiful part was I was so held by you in that space of discomfort that you weren't going to let me wiggle away, which is what I had done previously. I just wiggled away, like, too hard, and this is all the language that I was using, and it's too hard, it's difficult. I don't like my money. I don't want to look at it. Imagine, and this is the biggest transformation for me. Like, if I'm in a relationship with money, I want to move away from it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to ignore it. I want to just do what it needs to do over there, and just please don't come to me. Could you imagine having a relationship with a human like that?
Oh,
my
yes.
gosh. And so for me, that was the awakening for me. That was the real moment that I went, holy smokes, something has to shift. And I had to do the physical work of actually leaning into what I needed to tidy up. I had to take the actions. I had to go through the discomfort. And as I maneuvered through that, that was where we started, like through you capturing my language. Because here's the thing, when we talk about language and communication, quite often we don't actually hear it ourselves. Quite often we don't have that ability to hear the little snippets that just roll off our tongue, the programming. And this is what we talk all about in NLP. It's about the programming. How are we wired, and how do we undo the old wiring and connect new wiring? And it can be much, much less painful than people imagine. And this was the beautiful thing that's evolved for me. The first 6 months was hard. The first 6 months was me owning where I was at, actually having a conversation, building that relationship with money, changing into new habits, new behaviors, new ways of thinking as I went. And so with the support of having you there to do the mechanics that I just didn't know I needed, right? We talk about having a lack of skill set in certain things. That was my lack of skill set. I was like, I don't even know, Alex. And to this point of then coming now that I feel like I'm masterful, that I come to you, that I am proactive in what I do, that the language that I use, I talk to money too. I talk to my car. I talk to all of the things. When I see money land in my account, like I am grateful for it. And I say, thank you for bringing me that and everything that I have. When I turn the air conditioning on, I'm like, oh, thank you, money. What else have you got for me? Show me what else. And so I now have this playful exchange with money. Whenever I see it, I love it. Whenever I have it, even with my children now, when we've got cash in our wallet, which doesn't happen often, I've got more of it now because I respect money and it's coming into my life. But we love it and we talk to it and we get it out and we're like, oh my goodness, and thank you for all these things, and go into a real place of gratitude. And I think for me, having such a huge leap and change and shift in the way I speak about it, in the way I perform in my business, in the way that I exchange in my service with people, there's such a huge respect now between the exchange of what it is. People talk about money as an energy exchange. I now get that.
Yeah.
Because of I no longer hold on to any of that childhood programming, or any of my early adulthood programming, or any of my, as I've gone along my journey. It's now every day new. And I think that shift in being able to see money differently, to be able to have a different conversation with it and a different conversation with people outside of my business, with you, with my accountant, with my husband, when I'm talking about money with my clients, when I'm talking about money in the training room, there is such a different energy and feel to it because of the shifts that I've made, because of the language that I now wrap around and love on with money, that it just changes who you are. And I think it's one of the most valuable skills we can have is having the ability to love on money.
Yeah.
Despite what society or anything else says, I think that's a golden key.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, talking to the money queen, being able to love on money, that's an absolute yes from me.
Tick the box.
Yeah. Have I said that you're my favourite client yet or what?
That's so fun.
But I wholeheartedly agree with you there. And one thing that we've actually not spoken about before, which I'd love to dive into today, is because you are, that language expert and you're so mindful about your language and the journey that you have been on over the last couple of years, how has that actually shifted in how you're raising your sons? Because you've got 2 young boys. And how has that shifted how you parent them in relationship with money?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a difference. NLP didn't come into my life until my eldest was 7 and my youngest was 5. And so I didn't realize the impact and influence that my words had at that stage. I mean, I knew that they mattered, but I didn't realize the depth around money. We didn't have conversations around money. If we did have conversations, it was, oh, we can't afford that. Oh, no, we're not doing that. We haven't got the money for that. Oh, no, that's too much money. Oh, no, we've already got this. We don't need to spend on that. Oh, that's wasteful. Or all of this language that is just really dismissive and untrue. I want to say untrue, because the truth is that our money right now is allocated towards this. And so as we have conversations with our kids, particularly around money and earning money, they now have an investment account. So we're showing them, how do you put money away every single month so that you can grow your money? Like, you get to do this. How exciting that money just grows for you. Isn't that magical? And we talk about it from a place of magic, but we also talk about a place of practicality as well. So, you know, my husband and I will have conversations in the open around particular things. You know, we're also very mindful that if we need to have difficult conversations, that's not for their ears.
Yes.
We're very mindful of that. But when I parent them, you know, it's like, okay, well, look at the money that you've got. Great. How will that money make you feel if you spend it on that? Good. Okay, great. And what about this one? Is that something that you really need right now? Or is that a later thing that you can get? Oh, it's a later thing. Cool. We also have discussions around, you know, goals. Where do you want your money to go? What are you going to do with it? And so we get to play with that so that they can pull it in with excitement and they can spend it, you know. And that's been a learnt thing. I've had to learn to have those conversations because the old programming was not that. And so now that it is, and you know, I'm a work in progress all the time. And you know that. You know that I'm always about learning and growing and shifting and shaping. And so it's on this trajectory of getting them to this place of knowing that that money is for certain things. That is actually, we're allocating that money to go there. Yeah, cool. We get to do this thing because we have planned to have that celebration with that money. And thank you, money, for being there for us. So I think I probably until now haven't realized the shift that I have made at the profound level. There's probably room for growth, and there always is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
If someone says like, I'm done, I'm the best that I can be today, I'm done, I'm like, come on.
yeah. Are you really? Is that
tells
true?
me that you're definitely not.
Yeah. It's a sure sign, isn't it? It's a sure
Absolutely.
sign. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I have an invitation, Queen. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? If this episode is providing you with the aha moments and the loving bitch slaps that you needed to hear today, then listen up. My Money Queen coaching package is perfect to stop being so afraid of money and your numbers in business. This package includes a sacred money archetype reading, which is pretty much like human design but for your money world, and 2 additional 90-minute sessions customized for your own personal money journey to reset your relationship with money, to bring more wealth and abundance into your world for 2024. Remember that courageous moves will create the life of your dreams. And it's time to take action. Head to alexunscripted.com to book in a call with me today. What I love about what you just shared with us is, you know, the playful curiosity that you get to share with your family and your boys in particular around money. Like, it's not just like the journey that you've been on, you know, with me in the last 2 years. It's not just impacted you, it's impacted your business and also your boys and their future and their wives and the generation that they get to create, and your husband and, you know, perhaps even his family, because he goes to, you know, his original family, has conversations there, and, you know, he gets to unpack his money stuff as well. So it's like such a beautiful thing to hear and to receive, that like we get to be a part of this, you know, evolution of the world essentially, because it's like, as a female leader in your own life and in business and in, you know, what you're creating in your business in NLP and shifting literally the language of the world, it's like, where is the ripple effect in this? And I think that we as female leaders get to be that change, like, you know, be the, what is the word, sentence, be the change that you want to see in the world. It's like, are you courageous enough to take that leap forward to be the generational change that you want to see in this world? Like, you obviously said yes to that, let's call it 2 years ago, and now you're reaping the benefits of it. And even just that realization that you had, it's like, oh damn, like I didn't realize how much my life had actually shifted because of the things that I've done in the previous 2 years, and the decision that you made to be like, actually, this stops with me. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Absolutely. The first 6 months were horrible, as you said. But then once you move through that, it's like, amazing. Now I get to have a playful and curious relationship with money. I get to expand my business. I get to have difficult conversations with people external to my business, like partnerships, for instance, about the standards that I have with money, the boundaries that I have with money, what I'm willing to say yes to and what I'm willing to say no to actually expand your business and your life and, you know, your leadership as well. So I love that you get to be a stand for this next generation that's coming through.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Actually, just as you were speaking, a story that you reminded me of was with my boys when I came into my NLP training. I would go and celebrate with them every time someone enrolled in my program.
I love that.
Like, we would do high fives and I'd do a dance in the room and they'd be like, "Go, Mum." And we'd be like, "Yeah, celebrating, changing the planet." Because I think one of the things is that this attachment that we have, actually, it's just, the beauty of it is to show my kids that it's not about the money. It's about the thing that's greater than that. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's the shift in the mindset, the freedom that it gives you when you can talk about any topic that you want. Because money was a taboo topic.
Oh my God, yes.
Money was a taboo topic. Whereas now it's showing and just being the example. I think, we have to be mindful of what are our dominant thoughts. And if I've learned anything over this journey over the last, 2 years particularly, has been that I'm in charge of my dominant thoughts. And I get to choose what my dominant thoughts are. And so I get to pick myself up on it. And not in a way because I do exactly the same as you. When the guys in my training, they will hear me stop and say, "Actually, that's untrue." When I make a statement, that I say it and I think, "Oh, that's an old program." And I would just say, "Oh, that's untrue. Actually, the truth is," because I've trained myself to do it. Just unconsciously now, the program is capture an old belief and actually stop it, say it's untrue, and retrain myself. The truth is, and tell them what it is. And it could be around money, it could be around relationships, it could be around anything, because those default programs that are running unconsciously, sometimes I have a little slip moment where they just pop out and you think, "Whoop, hello, there you are." And so having that power and that's taking back our power, because we're not giving it away to any other suggestion outside of what we want. And I think that that's the beautiful part of it, is we get to choose to do that. And it takes work. It takes work. And it takes the one thing, though, that you mentioned just a minute ago that is the truth of it, is you have to have the courage.
Yes.
You got to have the courage and you have to make the decision, because all decisions will lead you where you want to go. And so for me, I clearly remember the moment that I was like, I need someone in my life that is going to be in partnership with me around my money. And I know that you and I had this conversation. I think it was in the first call. And I was like, actually, I'm looking for a partnership. I'm looking for my teamie. That was what I called it. I called it my teamie.
Yeah.
And you were like, "I'm all in on your teamie." And I was like, "Yay, great." Because I knew in my heart of hearts that I had decided to make a difference.
Yep.
I had decided to say no to the old stories. I decided to say no to the old behaviors. I decided to say, actually, I'm setting myself up for the future. And because it's not of service to me, it's not of service to my clients, it's not of service to my family, it's not of service to anybody. And so you just, for me, it was literally having the courage to stand up and decide that it had to be different. And the truth is that that's just the decision that I choose to make every single day now.
Yeah.
I just decide.
Yeah.
Absolutely every day. And through our conversations that every time we come into a call, it's like, cool, what's the next thing that we need to do in order to get to that next level, to step it up, to improve, to be better, to enhance, to optimize, to whatever, just to feel good, right? Just as simple as feel good with money. Yeah. Actually, what do I need to do now? Mm-hmm. And that decision, that continual deciding of that every day. Yeah. Every day. And if I forget to decide, something will pop up and I'll be like, "Whoop, that's right, I decided."
100%. And I think I said this in my last episode. It's like, when you decide, the universe is going to be like, "You sure? Are you 100% sure? Do you really want that? Or do you want something else? Like, here's a distraction. Like, here's like something else that you didn't ask for, that like shiny object syndrome, essentially." And it's like, cool, like this may be fun, this may be playful, this may be shiny, and like it's a short-term fix and a short-term like dopamine fix essentially. But it's like, what am I committed to here? What am I really committed to? Am I committed to, and a lot of people, especially in the money context, they're like, oh, here's this, $5,000 shiny object, where it's like, if you actually stay true to who you're trying to impact, like what you're actually here to do in the world, and stayed true to that and said no to this $5,000 shiny object, a 15 grand more authentic partnership may be waiting over in the wayside, waiting for you to stay true to who you are, with the impact that you are making and the clients that you are here to actually fucking serve. And the universe just needs you to be like, no. And I'm going to sit here in my truth and staying in alignment with the commitment that I've made to serving the world with my gifts. And then it's like, okay, here's this 15 grand gift that you now get to receive. You now get to make impact in the world because you stayed in alignment with what your truth is, with your the impact that you are making. Here's now what you're asking for.
And we know, right? We know when it's in alignment and when it's not.
100%.
We can tell in our bodies, and I love that conversation because quite often we can think we're at deficit in a skill or we're at deficit in a thing, whatever that shiny object is that you're talking about. And we think, oh no, I must have that because I can't do that without that thing. I've been there, I've done that. And actually, when it sits in truth, do I actually truthfully need this right now?
Yep.
And you just check in, and I think living at that level of trust in self too is a muscle that needs to be flexed. And it's a muscle that when we flex it becomes stronger and stronger. And I love how you're saying, stay in alignment, stay true to you, know what your pure desire is. I know Napoleon Hill talks about it. What's your chief aim? Where are you actually going? And stay true to that and only allow the thoughts in that serve you to get there.
Yep.
That's it. That's all you got to do. And so, yeah, it's powerful when you can.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, flexing that truth, flexing that trust muscle is a huge one. And I think that is probably the most courageous thing that I've done on my business journey to date, is trusting in my courage, essentially the level of it, to be like, everything that's happening is happening for me and for my highest good. And, saying no to small things that are genuinely a distraction so that I can stay on my path. I'm like, does this hurt right now to say no? Yes. Like, would it be financially beneficial for me to say yes? Yeah. But it's like, at what cost? At what cost is me saying yes to that? Because when you say yes to anything, you're saying no to something else. So saying yes to this short-term opportunity is saying no to long-term growth. It's saying no to long-term vision. It's saying no to long-term impact. It's like, is that true for me right now? Like, no, I'm not here playing the get rich quick scheme. I'm here for the long haul. And so it's like, if I get to be, uncomfortable for a few different moments, it's like I get to experience that, and I get to experience the depths of that, so that when we rise, it's like, this is actually a lot sweeter than, the previous rise or the previous fall, because I've now experienced those depths and that uncomfortableness, and I've had to, pull in all the experiences that I've been through to date to be courageous, to trust in myself, to trust where I am going, trust in my knowingness. And that, as corny as it is, the universe has my back because I have my own back, because the power is within me. And, saying no to a short-term opportunity, it's like, okay, cool. Because I've said no to that and I'm staying true with what my mission is, what do I now get to do? Who do I get to now be? And you said this at the start, like, who do I get to be? It's be, do, have. It's not have, be, have, do, be. Like, it always comes back to, especially in the money context, money is literally the outcome of who you are choosing to be. And the last guest that I had on, Tommy Kasha, he is living his most authentic life, and he is just like a fucking king, and I love it. He loves wearing pink, and he loves the Spice Girls, but he also loves the AFL and like all manly stuff. And it's like, when we are so authentic in ourselves and just stay in your own lane, like that's when money becomes a byproduct, because you're like, I'm just here doing me. And money just organically flows through to me because I'm living my best life, because I am, leading with heart. And that's another thing. I'm leading with my heart right now. And people fucking feel that so much. And I believe that, and you can be a testament to this, I believe that that's, the difference between me and just a normal bookkeeper or just a normal money coach or just a normal accountant when I used to be one. Like I make an intentional choice to lead with my heart. Do I actually feel a connection with this person in front of me? If the answer is no, I get to say no to them. But if the answer is yes, like it's a full body yes. And then, as you mentioned, like we're in partnership together, because like I love at end of month when we catch up. It's like genuine, what happened in the last month in business? What happened with you in the last month in life? And we get to celebrate. We get to, if it's been a down month, cool, like what happened? Like we get to unpack every bit of that because we're genuinely in partnership, and because my heart is connected to yours. It's like we get to experience this together.
And I think one of the key components that you're talking about there, because you're exactly right, and that's what I loved about you, and that's why I said yes, because in me it was like, you're in it for my greater good. It wasn't just to do the work. It was this real sense of teaming and connection. So absolutely, I'm a testament to that. That's so true. And what I love, though, and I'd love, maybe the listeners are hearing it, maybe not, but I'd love to just bring it to their attention, is the fact that the way you speak about how do we go into the lows, how do we come out of it, how do we make those choices? And when we say no to something, what words are we putting with that? When we're saying no to this here, how am I actually languaging it? Oh, I've left this thing. Or is it, actually, I chose to go all in on me and trust me? Same thing, different language that we're putting around it. You're going to feel different. You're going to have a different experience. Your mindset is going to be much stronger when you choose the language to explain that. One of the greatest gifts I was given was a sentence when it was one of my toughest times in business, that I had to make a choice and I had to choose me or something else. And as I stepped in and I lent into that, what they gave to me was this sentence that said, Katie, you get to choose the narrative. What do you want it to be? Ooh. And in that moment, that's when I decided that actually the way I'm going to talk about my choice that I'd made was going to be so aligned with me and empower me and empower what I was going through and where I was going and my direction and my focus. And if we were to rewind and just listen to you a moment ago, all of that language is what I would call future focused. And it's empowering language. It's words that actually, we know the reality that sometimes we can have dips that bring us up to this height. And it's like, cool, great. What am I going to see on the other side? How are we framing it? How are we thinking about it? And I know in our journey together that's been pivotal, because there's been moments when you're in it, you need sometimes that person on the other side to say, hey, we've got this. Remember, come back to this. And having someone who's with you on the journey to actually support you in that language, and you to support yourself, because it's exactly right. We get to choose the narrative in which we shape our reality, because everything only has the meaning we give it. And the language that we use, they don't define the experience, they shape the experience. And so what's our money? What's our money narrative?
Yeah.
Is it going to take us where we want, or something else?
Or hold us in resentment, hold us in the past, hold us in anger. I know that I unpacked something recently in a previous life of mine. I was like, oh, they're bad people. They did me wrong. They did X, Y, and Z. And it was like, actually, when I unpacked everything, it was like, I made a decision that was out of alignment with my truth, and that led to that outcome. And I knew at the time that it was out of alignment, but I still said yes to it in any case. And when I actually shifted that language and shifted the ownership of that and created a different narrative around that, and I've now written this on my fridge so that anytime that I catch myself in that story, I look up and I'm like, I made a decision that was out of alignment with my highest good, and that was then the outcome, taking full responsibility of that. I'm like, yeah, thank you very much. Like, but up until that moment, I was like, I had this story projected onto other people, and I was like, no, they're bad people. They're, doing X, Y, and Z, and all this negative connotations outwards. And it's like, actually, how can I bring all of that energy, wasted energy, mind you, back into myself and call that power in to use that energy somewhere else that's actually going to be more impactful for this world and for my own life and for my future than it is to hold on to that old story, which is no longer relevant. Like, I was keeping myself stuck. And when I allowed myself to shift that narrative, it's like, hot diggity damn. Okay, yep.
Yeah, and sometimes it can feel like a bit of a wet fish in the face. It can be that moment of going, oh. Yet, the beautiful thing about that is that it actually allows us to have more energy, more time, more capacity in our thinking, because you have up to 70,000 thoughts a day. 90% of them are recycled. If we're recycling old stories, like that's tiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the fact that you just reshape your narrative, that whole system of stories that were connected to that just disappears. And so you're thinking your everyday moments in your waking awareness, you get to actually think about what you want to create rather than be driven by an old story or have that fill up that little space in the mansion, in the mind mansion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like putting a money context onto this, it's like, where has money done me wrong in the past? Where has money not been there for me? And it's like, it's actually an asshole because I didn't have enough money to buy that car that I wanted, or to buy that present for my person, or to buy the engagement ring that I wanted for my wife, or insert whatever thing that you wanted to buy. Money's an asshole because I never was able to do that. And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of hurt that's attached to those stories. And when you perhaps go into business, or you are in business now, and if you're still holding on to those stories about what money took away from you, it's like, actually, what did money give you? What did money allow you to experience? How did you show up in order to get those experiences? Or how did you show up in order so that you weren't able to get those experiences?
And I think I love that as well, because I think fear is another big one that plays its part. There's definitely the side of anger, like it didn't this, it didn't that, like pointing at it, poking it. There's also that fear of like, it's going to be taken away. It's going to slip through my fingers. It's, there's never enough. I can't, it's just that this, like, it's like an undertow that it's being pulled away all the time. If we have that story running, then of course the outcome that we get from that is going to be very different to this of like, oh, actually it's coming in and it's got this beautiful flow, and just like a river does, that comes in from the mountains, and the mountains bring this beautiful river, this water down into the river, and then the river takes it and it travels here, but it's always replenished. It always comes in. There's always this exchange and this beautiful dance between it. Yet if we're in the old story of, and we're trying to grasp hold of it, it has a totally different energy to it. So when we shift our thinking and our narrative around that, actually money is, and I always think in metaphors. So for me, I always think of it as it's just this free flow, and this exchange of it just keeps coming in and going out, and that's its job. That's its job. It gets to come in and it gets to go out, and it gets to be fun to come in and it gets to be fun to go out, and it's replenished all the time, and it comes in great abundance, and we have this overflowing of it. That story, that old story, is no longer relevant. And that's the thing when we language, when we're looking at money, when we language it, when we think about how are we thinking about it. If I was to ask the audience, when you think of money, Do you have a picture, and what is that picture? And is that picture serving you in getting you what you want? Is it serving you in building the relationship with money? Is it going to empower you? Is it a picture that allows you to be free?
Beautiful. I love that. And it's a very empowering question to go, if money was standing in front of me right now, would it want to be friends with me? How am I treating it? And how is it treating me then in response to that? The answer is often not very comfortable to receive. But as we spoke about earlier, without that information, without that awareness, we're not able to shift. So it's like, are you courageous enough to ask yourself that question and to sit in the uncomfortableness of receiving that response, to go, okay, right now, if money was standing out in front of me right now, it would not want to be my friend. It would not want to date me. If we were in a relationship, it would have dumped me 10 years ago. Like,
Absolutely.
what is your current reality right now if money was in front of you? And whatever your response is, how do I get to shift that moving forward? What's now my response? Because as we've spoken about, we have control around the language that we use. And it's such an impactful tool. What do I now get to choose moving forward in my language around money, in my response to money? And therefore, in my response to business, in my language around my business, in how I show up to business opportunities, to then shift the outcome of my life, and allowing yourself to shift that focus of, I'm here in business to earn $100,000 a year, as opposed to, having money as the focus, and shifting that to be like, I'm here to impact 100 people this year, and have money as the byproduct. Totally different languaging, but the same outcome. Both businesses in that context may have had $100,000 years, but the focus is totally different. The language is totally different, and the person showing up is completely different as well. There's someone leading with their heart as opposed to someone leading, let's just call it, with their dick.
You're right.
Yeah. And we get to lead with our heart. And that's a sustainable business model, as opposed to someone just chasing the money and, being a dick.
I think it's also, yeah, you're right. and I think in that too, then your business gets to be fun. I don't know about you, but I didn't realize the amount of energy and input I would need to put into my business. And if what I'm looking towards, if what I'm moving towards isn't far greater than me or the money, then why am I doing it? Like, actually, am I going to be fulfilled? Oh, I don't know. So that languaging, that direction, that focus, right? The mind needs focus and direction. And what's the symbol that we're looking at? What's the symbol that we're looking at? And does that symbol draw us towards it? Now, you and I have been through a lot, so you know that my symbols have changed, and my symbol and my direction and my focus that I'm going now is, it doesn't become work. You know, when people say that they don't work a day in their life, like my dad's like this, he's a farmer and he never works. And yet he works really hard every single day. Someone looking from outside in, Dad's like, oh, I don't work. I just get to work. I just get to be on the farm. And it's just like he's living his childhood dream, And I think if we can all have that feeling and what we're headed towards, and the language that we use in order to go in that direction to my desired result, then it's easy. Whatever you've got to do, even if it feels hard, like leaning into the money, leaning into the growth that I've had, leading into the change, leading into the conversations, leading into the shifts and change in my behavior, my patterns, my thinking, my language, all of that, my energy, my frequency around it is easy.
It's easy when we allow it to be.
It's easy when we allow it to be. Yeah, because it's simple.
Yeah, exactly. And it's often the things that are incredibly simple that people overlook because they are so simple. And they're like, oh, that can't be the secret sauce. That's too simple. And it's like, actually, it really is. It's like consistency. So boring, so basic, but so many people lack it and, quit business after a year or 2 years because they're like, oh, nothing's happening. But if they would have stayed on for a third year, that's when they would have boomed because they just fell through with the lack of consistency, like they weren't true with their commitment. It's like, that's when, shit hits the fan and it's like, oh, damn it. What's happening here? I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. And noticing the shifts, I know that would probably be the habit that has been the best money wise for me, has really been that consistent every month with you. Like really, paying attention to my numbers here, doing my thing weekly, making sure that I'm following up with those things, getting into those habits and behaviors, but having the direction and the language to support it, like the thinking behind it. It's really about the thinking behind it, right? As I said at the start, it's not what you think, it's how you think.
Yes.
And so if we can get all of that lining up, particularly around money, magic happens. It just comes in and it gets to be easy and it gets to be fun and it gets to be fruitful and it gets to be luxurious and it gets to be all of the things that you want it to be.
Yeah. I love that.
So sexy. Mm-hmm. I love me some money.
I love money and money loves me.
That's right.
Oh, well, that was a juicy episode. I love that. And obviously I love talking to you all the time.
Yeah, we do.
If you had to explain NLP to one person and how it can most benefit their life in general, doesn't need to be in the money context, one short, sharp sentence, what would that be? Perhaps with a theme of, because this is one of the last episodes of 2023, perhaps in that sphere of, what are you calling forward in 2024?
NLP is the study of excellence. And it's all about the study of how do we utilize the tool which we are gifted with in order to get the results that we want and live a life that we truly love. That's what NLP is. And it sets you up to become the person you've always dreamed of being.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And I love you too.
Love you too.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Queen, for saying yes to your yes in listening to this episode and being a part of raising the feminine collective one conversation at a time. Remember to share this episode with your business besties and join me in breaking the tabooness around having money conversations. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, please rate, subscribe, and share this on your social media, remembering to tag me in it to help this conversation go further, which creates a bigger ripple effect.